welcome to all our speakers with us here today. And it's great to have champions here for apprenticeship programmes, because that's what we want to see. We want people to be our champions that are going to encourage a lot more students coming into Leaving Cert, that there are other options out there. I come from Ballinasloe and I represent, I suppose, Roscommon and Galway, and I was at our GRETP Galway Roscommon Education Training Board had an opening day yesterday, and all the tutors were there, and there was girls, there was people of all ages coming in, you know, like in their 30s and 40s, looking to do different courses, so not just school leavers, but I suppose, to my mind, lifelong learning is very important, so I might ask you for a couple of comments on that. But one of the girls that came in, and it really struck me, she was non-national, but she came in and she was doing her Leaving Cert, and she was under, I think, a lot of stress and pressure, and she just said that she felt she came in with no hope, and after a half an hour talking with tutors and trainers in there, she left with hope. You know, there was a smile on her face, and she felt that if she didn't make, she particularly wanted to do a particular qualification, if she couldn't get it through the point system, there would be another opportunity to do it through further education, you know, or be it apprenticeships. I suppose there's that sense of hope that I would think that the apprenticeship programme has to give. The world skills, and Michael, I'm just in terms of, I suppose, a few comments, I might just ask maybe yourself and Ray, just the area around lifelong learning, and potentially, like, how do we encourage people at different age groups to consider apprenticeships or changing careers, and what do we need to do on that? I know in the opening statement here as well it was referenced, and I think you've also spoken probably before about other European countries, and particularly, you know, how they have high take-ups of apprenticeships. Like we heard earlier in this last year actually from Norway, and I know Germany has very high uptake of apprenticeships. What do they do that we don't? Now, they did speak to us, but is there something there simple that we can do? The next question would just be around the buildings. So one thing that we in Fine Gael, I suppose, have been looking at is how we use school buildings and how they can be used after school hours, how we use premises in regional areas. Like, say, for example, for the education training boards all across the country, they sometimes have further education colleges that will not be in use now potentially over the summer months until they start up their courses again in September. How are we working with our ETBs and our TUs to make the most out of existing buildings? I understand everybody always wants new buildings, and we know that that's the number one request. But if I could say, like, there are existing buildings there, when it comes to being able to develop and deliver classes, is there a way that we can look at existing buildings and how we're working with the ETBs, who I think are quite integrated now with the TUs as well? In terms of our champions here, might have a few questions as well. I think, Mark, you're the competitor on the bricklaying side, is that correct? So I get to hear when I promote apprenticeships. I remember I was in and I was getting the car washed. It's a treat. I was there going, right, I'll get the car done. And this guy came in behind me, and he was getting his car done too. And he was working, there's 40 units going up in town, so 40 houses getting built. And I was just chatting to him, and he goes, oh, I met you, you know, he was from Galway or East Galway, you know, it was one of the villages. I met you before. And I was like, oh, great. And I said, God, were you in Leaving Cert? Because I remember being in that school. And he went, yes. And I went, God, are you working now? It's only about 2 or 3 years later. And he went down the apprenticeship programme, and he was doing plastering. And I said, my God, that's amazing. I said, why do you think we're not seeing more people doing it? And he was like, oh, sure, you know, hard work and everything else. And this was a young guy saying it to me. I was like, really? And he just said, well, I don't know. And I said, do they know that you've got a car? Do they know that you've got a nice, you know, a nice car that's in here, and that, you know, it says pride and joy? I suppose if I could ask you, Mark, how do you tackle sometimes when you get that sort of put back on the younger generation about, oh, you know, it's not the same as maybe 20 or 30 years ago? How do we combat that sort of narrative? Maybe it's a question for yourself. And I suppose, guys, for the rest of you, I suppose I might just ask if you have any comments just about, you know, there is a story that we have to tell about what apprenticeships is. We can see how successful it is in places like Germany and Norway. What is it that we need to do as public representatives? But then also, how do we engage with yourselves as our world skills champions, and maybe through organisations like that, to promote the apprenticeship programme? So I might leave it, and maybe we'll start with Michael first and then maybe Ray. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe just to take up a few of your points, sure. I think the first main one was about the building requirement and that end of it, and working with the ETBs. And I'm wearing my MTU hat for a moment, if I may, sure. On this one. we have engaged strongly with the Cork ETB, which is
Great.
actually directly across the road from MTU Bishopstown campus.
Oh,
so we've worked, and we are indeed sharing facilities.
Fantastic. Great to
We
hear.
are using a lecture theatre in the ETB training centre.
Okay.
It works well in the sense that literally across the road, so it's a 5-minute walk. It actually does work.
Yeah.
So furthermore, the ETB have come to our facilities and looked at some of our workshops and some of our facilities to see was there any way we could work together to make it happen. And again, certainly noted that most of the facilities are available, obviously, from June to September. And that's obviously noted, and they are aware of that, and they have that in mind. So hopefully that may come to something, because they do deliver throughout
the only reason being that I suppose an awful lot of ETBs, like Cork is a large county. I mean, Galway would be the second largest county geographically speaking, and there'll be a lot of colleges of further education, a lot of different towns, and it reduces the transport costs for students if we're able to deliver some of that theory maybe in different locations. You know, I can imagine down in Skibbereen, West Cork, I mean, you know, would there be a place there where the ETBs, you know, where you could look at delivering something in those locations to apprenticeships?
Certainly, and I mean, there's another anomaly in the system, if you like, as well, in that, for example, we'll take construction plant fitting.
Yeah.
Cork, MTU Cork, is the only centre in the country that's delivering construction plant fitting to Phase 4 and Phase 6 apprentices. Therefore, if you're doing construction plant fitting apprenticeship in, say, Donegal, to do your Phase 4 and Phase 6, there's one place you're going, and that's down to Cork. There's no other choice.
And is it a case then that we need to look at developing the expertise to be able to deliver those within each of our TUs, as opposed to it solely being available in one? Is there a demand for it to be available in one?
That's an option, but the problem is the facilities that are required and the equipment that's required is extremely expensive.
So that's why it's...
So that's why that's happening. So that's one thing. New buildings, yeah, I mean, look, new buildings are required because some of the workshops that we have in MTU are not fit for purpose, basically.
And I'm so sorry, Michael, for stopping you, but I might just bring in Ray, and we might follow this up afterwards. It's just I'm conscious of the time, and I know that the other deputies come in. My apologies. And guys, we'll follow up on this separately as well. Sorry, Ray, go ahead.
Thank you, Senator. I think a number of points that you raised, one with Germany and Norway, it's a real issue of equity, and it's more than equality, that they actually value apprenticeships in a totally different way and support them in more where they're needed. And that's not a culture that's new, it's a longer term culture. We're starting that again, so I suppose for us that journey might be slightly longer, but it is the value on it that's really, really important, and it's our collective value and driving that on. I think that's really important. It's also about visibility.
Yes.
And visibility is really important. And if we can't have people who are visible, and the more visibility we can get of young people, not talking to myself or Michael, who are both qualified tradespeople, but to the younger people who are there, that's really, really key to, I think, a lot of the outputs. I think just on a couple of points, and I'll take off my world skills and put on my TU Dublin hat and say a lot of the buildings, well, you know, you think of Bolton Street and Kevin Street, which is now demolished and it's moved up to Grange Gorman. Bolton Street's a very old building. And in many cases, it's about the type of space that's available, that it's not a flexible space. Okay. It doesn't allow for the new type of education that we're looking for. Where, as Michael pointed out, that the facilities are used both for undergraduate courses, research, indeed, and apprenticeship. And it's that combination that will give us the flexibility to grow and equity in everything that we deliver.
Thank you.
I think that's really important. And again, to Michael's point...
You off there, okay?
So sorry.